Well, howdy diddly dandy there, chums, 'tis I, Captain of the Steves, and today, chums, for you guys out there in the viewerverse, I just want to talk a little bit about Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, it looks like early review keys went out from Capcom. I did not get one of these early review keys, but what I have been doing is watching a fair few of the reviews that other big companies and content creators have been doing. And you know what? I've already seen the game through the beta access, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time through the beta access, and I can't wait to jump in and see some of these new creatures firsthand in person and start doing little me play guides, best tips videos for taking out these giant freaking nasties, but also any sort of issues I have with taking out these giant freaking nasties. Anyway, let's jump on over, shall we, to the old Tinterweb. And let's have a look at some of these reviews and see if it swayed my excitement at all. Okay, so first off, let's hit up the IGN review and let's just sort of hear their summarization of what they feel for Monster Hunter Wilds. Here we go.
That all said, Wilds deserves credit for being what has got to be one of the most customizable games I have ever played. There's a huge host of accessibility features. You can adjust the size of or turn off individual elements on your UI. You have more control than ever over your menus and radio wheels, and you can alter the look of stuff like your mount, chat stickers, and even fast travel tents to a surprising degree.
Okay.
As a crowning touch, you can finally wear any version of each armor set too,
Layered
essentially
armor.
doubling the cosmetic options previously available as you get into the all-important fashion side of things towards the end.
One of my favourite aspects, to be fair.
Partying up online has also been made more robust, letting you run around each map with your friends and seamlessly flow from hunt to hunt without having to regroup at camp between each mission. And even if you're largely...
I was saying, okay there, because look at the ground. None of these leaves... I mean, some of it... I just don't think the shadows pop. For an Unreal Engine game... When you look at games like, I don't know, Far Cry or even Crysis from years ago, I think the foliage just doesn't quite pop. In fact, a lot of the colours don't. It's quite muted, isn't it, in these forest areas? I thought maybe with the beta all being in the desert, maybe that's just that biome. But seeing this biome makes it look very swampy. Very sort of, I don't know whether that's on PlayStation. I think it's on PlayStation, but it looks a little bit muddied.
Between each mission. And even if you're largely planning to play solo, there are quality of life changes here for you too. That could be the surprisingly competent AI support hunters that fill empty spots in your party when you fire an SOS flare, but also the inclusion of an online single-player option that lets you fire flares to get help, but still pause the action entirely before you do.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, here we go. Here's the verdict.
Monster Hunter Wilds continues to smooth off the rougher corners of the series in smart ways, reducing as much friction as possible that could get in the way of you grabbing any of its exceptionally fun weapons and planting them firmly in a monster's hide. But in that quest to make Monster Hunter more approachable, Wilds is sliced a little too close to the bone in some places.
Okay,
Trimming
why?
its challenge back so much that I barely needed to engage with its in-depth equipment system at all this time to become an apex predator.
Okay.
Its more flexible combat is still some of the most fun I've had with the series, but like the blustering lightning storms of its gorgeous desert, it burns brightly but briefly until Capcom unleashes some real endgame beasts to challenge us.
It's giving it an 8, which is great, that's great, isn't
For
it?
more, check...
Now, what he was saying there about the actual challenge, though, being reduced in favour of new players coming in, one of my favourite things with the previous Monster Hunter games was to be able to craft some armour that was specific for taking out specific creatures. Like if you're going up against electric creatures, building an armour set that stops you from getting paralysed by lightning, you know, or by electric evil creatures. Or if they've got poison in their arsenal, having an anti-venom set. Okay, well, let's just jump up over to Digital Foundry, and let's see what Digital Foundry have to say. Is this Digital Foundry? Just double check. Yes, Digital Foundry. And this is more on the technical aspect, and this is looking more at the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and graphical performances of the devices. Now, I've picked this up on PC, so not really relevant to me, but if you are picking this up on console, you might want to watch the full thing. I've just jumped all the way over to the last chapter here. Xbox Series X, just about gameplay, thoughts and conclusion. Let's just hit that.
Beyond the visual minutiae, I do have to admit that Monster Hunter Wilds didn't really grab me as a player. I've
Okay.
played and enjoyed older Monster Hunter games before,
Like
but
me.
Wilds is a pretty overwhelming game in the sophistication of its gameplay systems.
That's not what the
combat
last guy
involves
said.
a lot of complexity. There are so many potential weapon types, and the hotkey and menu systems are a little obtuse.
He said
Players
they're
who are
really
out of practice
customizable.
like me are bound to be overwhelmed. There is so much to learn here, and the game seems to take it for granted that you have an affinity for the series and a lot of background knowledge before you pick up the controller. It's a bit of an intimidating game, with gameplay detail that rivals complex MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV.
I can see
Over
really
my
good
hours of
tutorials
play,
just
I
there.
didn't really click with the game's combat, though there were occasional bright spots. I'm sure there will be a compelling action game here for a lot of players, but it's submerged a bit beneath gameplay systems that aren't exactly self-explanatory. It also
Right.
doesn't help that the game's mode selection is relatively lackluster, and that there's such a steep consequence for wanting to play in framerate mode on PS5 and Series X. where I
Frame
think
rate
the
mode
moment-to-moment
looks terrible.
gameplay feels best. The biggest issue
like
here is that the
PSP.
visuals just don't scale all that well to PS5, Series X, and Series S. The lack of temporal upsampling plus the relatively constrained power of console hardware results in a less than ideal experience, at least on the tested machines. Series S in particular needs some revision, failing to reach a stable 30 FPS in a lot of content. We'll have more to say about PC and PS5 Pro in follow-up content, but for now I'm less than satisfied with the Wilds experience on the regular current-gen consoles. If you enjoyed this video,
Ooh, ouch.
please like, subscribe, and press the bell for YouTube
Okay.
notifications.
Well, there was some conflicting information given from that review to the last one. The previous one from IGN said, that they'd lost some challenge in favour of new players and making it less convoluted and less complicated, where Digital Foundry said that it's actually buried under complexities and nuances that you should have learned from previous games that just isn't carried over or taught inside of this one. So when you get the two reviews together and you go, where's the truth in this? I don't know. Okay, right. Next one, here we go. And they didn't give it a score. Digital Foundry didn't score it out of 10, so that helped massively, didn't it? Okay, so this is by game ranks, and they haven't put in chapters. So I just put it over towards the endy bit, and I'm hoping that I don't really watch game ranks all too often. I like a guy called Wortherby, Mac Wortherby. I like watching his reviews. He's usually on the same sort of wavelength as me. He just seems like a normal gamer. But anyway, let's see. I mean, you've got to take into account all these people did get given early access keys. So let's hit play.
It is interesting if you care to pay attention to it. And performance-wise, on console, it is offered like a performance and fidelity mode, and I played on performance. It's nice having a solid frame rate that would only stumble sometimes for me, but the bigger problem is that some of the textures and environment lighting just stylistically does not look good. Some textures
I'd
look
agree.
so bland, they almost look low resolution,
Yeah.
and some areas just come off really gray and drab, where they really shouldn't. Some of it is intentional because of the world and how it progresses after certain sequences, but it still just doesn't look very good. I think they've gotten a lot of mileage out of the bones here, like the framework of these Monster Hunter games, but visually it seems like it's starting to all strain a little bit. Still,
Yeah.
the positives here are the detailed character armors, the fur, the color palettes overall, and again, having a solid frame rate. I wasn't able to test multiplayer out too much, but it seems to have the full suite of features that you would want. You don't have to get too far into the game to be able to access these, thankfully, and you can create link parties to get friends in and just play as long as you want, and you can do this in the environment. You can also send out the SOS flares I mentioned earlier to just get help from some randoms. But me personally, as a single player gamer, I just tend to hunt solo more often than not, or at least me and my cat friend here. So again, this is where we come at Monster Hunter. I've always appreciated the series, but it clicked with me with World in 2018,
Yeah.
and now I look forward to these games and hunting monsters. Where World was challenging and detailed, Wilds is faster, quirkier, more colorful, more customizable, and a little more story-oriented. I
Colorful.
think there's a lot to enjoy here if you're a player like me, but if you play these games for hundreds of hours, your mileage may vary. I think time will tell, and I'd like to revisit this more in the future. But for now, this is a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinions, and now I want to hear yours. This is dropping a couple of days before release, so I do want to know what you expect, what you're looking forward to, if this is going to be your first Monster Hunter or not. Let's talk about this series. Are you like me? You play them casually, or are you someone that has been like grinding away on your 3DS and Monster Hunter games for years? Let's talk about this stuff. Anything at all, let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, maybe, you know, hearing our first impressions and seeing the gameplay on screen here, maybe it, you know, steered your purchasing decision, clicking a like button helps us out. We appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day.
So that
As always,
was
thanks for watching, and we'll see you.
Gamer Ranks. So that was Gamer Ranks. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, I'll reconvene with my thoughts from all of these reviews put together. Okay, chums. Well, myself, I do agree that a lot of the actual textures and things inside of this do look fairly low res at times. I would say that the main places where the game looks great is the main characters and the creatures. There's parts of the world like the water, the reflections, the shadowing, the lighting. It doesn't look as nice as some of the other games that we've been treated to throughout the last couple of years. I don't know whether we've been spoiled by some of these games. I've been playing a lot of No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky just got a massive, great big uplift to the water physics, the lighting, the shadowing. And it looks far nicer than what Capcom have managed to get out of the Unreal Engine. Now, when you look at other games in Unreal Engine, like, say, Nightingale, it looks beautiful when it comes to the actual world. This world inside of this, which should be one of its main draws, really, looks very diluted in colour palette. I would say I'm going to try and go into the options and toggle them and make the shadows a little darker and try to boost the contrast a little bit to give myself a bit more brightness to the world itself. It looks very diluted in colour palette is what I would say of this. It looks like comparing England to a tropical island. You know what I mean? This looks very England in colour palette. In the autumn and winter time. I mean, England's quite lovely and green in the spring and summer, but this looks like what I'm seeing out my window right now, you know? It's not exactly the greatest when it comes to brightness and attractiveness. These scenes are nice. These are very nicely lit inside these tents with candles and stuff like that. But then when you're actually out in the world and stuff like this, it looks like you could be playing a Castlevania game. Whereas Monster Hunter Wilds, that I previously got into, was a lot brighter, a lot nicer. I mean, look at the character design in this. I like the hair, I like the physics, I like the fur. It all looks freaking nice. They've also made it so the cat creatures, or the palicos or whatever, can talk inside of this. I'm going to be changing mine to just meow all the time. I don't really like backseat people going, oh, you need to come over here. No, thank you. Just meow. That'll do. Heck yes, but there are elements where it looks nice and bright, and then there's other elements where it looks really dark. Are they trying to cover up some of the fidelity and graphical issues and frame rate issues by dulling down the graphics, is what I'm wondering. It looks very muddied and very washed out, and I did notice that when I tried playing the beta on the actual PlayStation 5. And in fact, that's what swayed my decision to get it on PC, because it looked far better when it came to resolution and to clarity on my PC. I mean, I have spent quite a lot on the PC, so it made sense as well, to be fair, to get it for the PC rather than the PlayStation 5. I don't think I've seen a PlayStation 5 game that's really made me go, oh my god, I need to have a PlayStation 5. Horizon Zero Dawn, I mean, look at the graphics on Horizon Zero Dawn and see how beautiful that looks, and then look at Monster Hunter Wilds on the same platform. Something hasn't quite gone right there. I think the PlayStation 5 is capable of delivering closer graphic fidelity to the PC version, in my own opinion. I just don't know whether Capcom's actually tweaked or done enough optimization there. But then again, the Unreal Engine, it should be able to pull this stuff off. I've seen Unreal Engine games on PlayStation 5 do pretty darn well. So it's a bit of an oddity. I don't really know what's going on there. But going from those reviews, I think something that they all agreed on is they like the use of the NPCs that you can summon in. You can still do this solo, and some of those NPCs are great to work with, and they actually work quite nicely, apparently. So that's good to hear. So you don't have to fire up flares and worry about maybe some other player joining you that just stands at base camp just to get the actual drops and to get the reputation after you and 2 others maybe take out the monster. I used to have that happen a lot in Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, yeah, I used to play on the 3DS, and those ones were a lot brighter, a lot more cheerful, and they were a lot more sort of aimed at younger players, I think. But this, I'm hoping, is going to give a challenge, despite what they've said. But pretty much all of the reviewers says that the challenge has been taken down a little. And the main challenge, if you listen to the second one that I've done, Digital Foundry, the hardest part is trying to get into the game if you've not played any of the previous Monster Hunter games. I don't know how true that is, considering that even in the beta there was a little bit of hand-holding, telling you how to use the slinger and what to look for on the monster, and there was lots of cues given by your palico that in my case didn't shut up, so I just changed it to meowing. But you can just leave it to it talking and it giving you the advice you need. So there we go. I think it is what it is. I think pick it up. If this interests you, pick it up. If you like big monsters, pick it up. But it is an expensive game. I would say wait until some content creators like myself and other content creators out there do their reviews and see if there's anything that tickles your fancy then. It's an expensive game to plow money into if you're not going to like it. Till next time, goodbye, and goodbye again.